The vision of the justice reform is answering the cry for justice by bringing reformation from city to city. What is reformation? Reformation is making the crooked ways straight. And we have a lot of crooked ways in our city, state, and nation right now. A lot of injustice happening and a lot of blind eyes looking the other direction. Due to this, there's a cry for justice happening across America, and there will be an answer that comes from someone or something. If we don't answer the cry, the world will. Evil agendas will. The wrong people will answer that cry. This is a picture of one of the spas in Atlanta in March 2021 where multiple people were shot and killed. A horrific event that Asians, a Hispanic, and whites were all shot. We hear through almost every media outlet and national leaders that this is an Asian American hate crime. A few quotes and responses to this shooting from America's President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris are this: the shooting took place as a violent hate crime and discrimination against Asian Americans has risen dramatically over the last year. And another: for the last year, we've had people in positions of incredible power scapegoating Asian Americans, people with the biggest pulpits, spreading this kind of hate. Yet, FBI Director Christopher Wray said it does not appear that the motive was racially motivated. They're aware of every detail of this scenario, yet they point to Asian hate and racism meeting with Asian American and Pacific Islander advocates instead of meeting with anti-human trafficking advocates and organizations to help millions of women who are in bondage to get free. So I'm gonna be straightforward with you and say that this is a cover-up to divide our nation and hide the truth. The justice reform will fight the injustice of racism, but this is not a crime of racism. Robert Aaron Long, the shooter, is 21 years old and attended a Baptist church with his family almost his whole life. In fact, he was a serving member in his church, and his faith was extremely important to him, in which his roommate and others testified to. So when asked by the police what his motive was, I believe he answered honestly, saying this: "I have an addiction to sex and I was trying to eliminate temptation." It was found that Robert Young was a frequent visitor of these spas. His roommate comments that when he came home from falling into temptation, that he would be suicidal and have to give his weapons to him to keep him from hurting himself. See, Robert Young also told the police he was going to take down the porn industry to eliminate that temptation. Robert Long needed help. The world will pinpoint him as a racist wild gun shooter, but how many others that have done these types of horrific crimes, and the world has shouted in response that they need counseling for their mental illness, not prison. See, when the story doesn't fit their narrative, they change the story and cover up the truth. See, this scenario needs a cover-up because the motive is very clear, that this was not a race crime, but a sex crime, a crime in the dark world of sex trafficking in which no media, local mayors, or leadership will admit that this was a place and business of sex trafficking. In this MSN article, it eerily opens up with, "Our silence is complicity." See, this is America's president and vice president using truthful words to manipulate a false solution so the real problem cannot be solved. If everyone is trying to cure Asian American hate and racism, Asian Americans' sex enslavement, which is true hate, continues. This agenda is from the top down, and it is an agenda because the truth is right out in the open. It's quite easy when you do a little research on these spas what you will find. First is that every spot targeted in this shooting were all open 24 hours. This is a picture of one of those spas that Robert Long was a frequent client of. Uber drivers comment on Google and other platforms which kind of individuals they drop off at this spa, one stating his straight and single lonely passengers love this place after the clubs close, for some reason. Then if you check the reviews, you can see many individuals commenting on their sexual experience while at this spa. You can also see right out in the open on Google, the highest clientele moments are between the times of 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. Not normal business hours, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., but 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. Now, how many of you out there usually get your facials, your Botox, or your massages at 2 a.m.? See, we don't, because we're sleeping. In fact, while we're sleeping, others are imprisoned in what would be our worst nightmare, sex slavery. You can also see on Google that this entire street is full of strip clubs, tattoo parlors, multiple 24-hour spas. It's right in the open what was happening at this business, yet no one says anything. The locals know what's happening, the local PD knows what's happening, yet our media sources and national leaders report nothing about the sex slavery that's happening here. See, one of the problems is that they have already normalized this place of business in major cities across America. I was raised just north of Seattle, Washington. I grew up seeing these spas open all night on every street corner, in fact, more of them than Starbucks. And with flashing lights, seeing police cars pull up at night, seeing businessmen, husbands, and fathers as clientele. See, this numbs the human soul so that we don't even react for the justice of those trapped or brainwashed inside having to perform sex on random strangers all day, every day. In fact, these locals that know what is happening in these businesses have seen them there for decades. So to them, it's nothing out of the ordinary. And they believe these girls want to be doing this with their life. So many people out there also believe that racism against Asians is horrific, but their sex enslavement is enjoyable and normal. If any idea is racist, it is this one. See, the mayor of Seattle came out and remarked on this event saying, "This is an act of hate." And now she's taking additional steps to protect Asian American communities in Seattle, including additional police patrols. In fact, articles from our major news sources say that police and security are being sent to protect Asians in their workplaces so that they can live at peace or with dignity. We are living in a time now that we are sending police to protect women in their place of enslavement. And the world is cheering on our leaders as if this is heroic, all the while they're being more enslaved and hopeless than ever. The world is championing and rioting for the wrong solution to a problem because they've been fed a false narrative. Why will none of our news outlets share these spas are places of sex trafficking? Why will none of our national leaders and so many of our state leaders not expose these places of sex trafficking? Why? Because the world has a plan. They have a plan to end human trafficking too. See, as they release these pedophilia curriculums into our schools, teaching children masturbation at age 3, allowing them to test at young ages what sexually arouses them most to show them what their scores of how much womenness or menness is in them, teaching them multiple types of sex partners and how to perform on different types of beings. All the while legalizing and normalizing a child making their own decision on changing their sex and body parts without parent permission. Or how about praising the parents that are forcing their children in hormone treatments and surgeries, turning their children into the sex that they desire? This is child abuse. This is perversion. This is an evil agenda. And if we sit back and do nothing, we are allowing the world to prepare our children to be so sexualized and brainwashed that we will lose them. They will be fed perverse desires that are out of our control that will be protected legally to perform sexually however way they have been brainwashed to whoever they want. Yes, they're working on right now making it a preferred and legal sexual identity and choice that you were born this way, desiring children. Sex with a child, sexual relations with a child may be the next sexual preference legalized, called heroic, and applauded in our nation. What would you do if this was your child? Your child decides to get a sex change without you, or your 10-year-old daughter decides she wants a 45-year-old boyfriend and you call the police. But their response is this is their choice. There's nothing we can do about it. See, there will be no trafficking if it's legal, if it's a choice. If our children have been raised to perform, there will be no getting back our children when it's too late. The world knows what this is. They know what human trafficking is, and they're working on their plan to end it. Are we? Are we working together, or are we working in division? Are we asleep, or are we awake? Are we too busy, or are we filled with the righteous anger? Either the world will end it, or we will first to protect our children and our legacy. But it will take an awake people, a unified people to say yes together to ending slavery. I didn't say woke. I'm asking, are you awake? Are you paying attention before it's too late? Because the time is now. No more waiting in fear, wondering, competing, pretending to care. The time is now to end it before the world does.